Welcome to the SB Nation ACC preview. It's 2015. It is the off season, and we're in Bryant Park as a really friendly reminder to go outside, see things, see your favorite people, go to your favorite places.
I'm one of your favorite people?
Your top 25s.
Yes.
Top 25. Ryan's got a football. We've got pastries and coffee because we're here to discuss the ACC. We've trapped you. What's your big story of the 2015 season?
Who's going to win the Coastal Division? A different team has finished atop with the best record in the Coastal the last 4 years. You look at it and you say, Georgia Tech had such a dominant end to the season, looks really good, returns a lot of intriguing pieces. They're going to win. That said, that's not how the Coastal usually works out. And there are at least 4 teams in this division that have a coach kind of facing a do-or-die season. So I think it'll just be really interesting to see how this dogfight shapes out in the end.
Pretty much everybody in the Coastal is either good enough to win or make it a game, or
needs to be good enough to win.
Or needs to be good enough to win. I'm going to go in the other division, Florida State, Everett Golson specifically, because quarterback was a huge question mark coming into the season. Everett Golson transfers, but this is a system that Jimbo Fisher has run. The terminology is complicated. The shifts, the pre-snap reads are complicated.
NFL teams will tell you that this is a very complicated
This is very
offense.
true. So we're looking at a rebuilt offensive line. There's experience at receiver. Obviously, Dalvin Cook finished the season extraordinarily strongly in 2014. But just the rhythm. He doesn't have the safety valve in Nick O'Leary that they previously had. So, and defensively, they're rebuilding as well. So that can't be bailing out the offense. So intrigued to see how quickly Florida State can get into a rhythm, because that is a complicated offensive system.
Absolutely.
Who to you is going to rise to sort of the cream of the conference that wasn't necessarily there last year?
I think UNC is in place to make a really nice bounce back. They return pretty much their entire offense, which at times last season was one of the most impressive in the nation overall.
Absolutely.
On the defensive side of the ball, they literally can't get worse, it seems like. But they bring in Gene Chizik, who, for all his failings as a head coach, has a very nice background as a defensive coordinator.
And no sideburns.
And no sideburns.
You know he will not bring sideburns to distract people.
That's so early, though.
Mutton chop Gene? Is that what you want to see?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, they were very inconsistent last year. They lost teams they shouldn't have. They beat some teams they shouldn't have. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be, oh, shoot, UNC's an 11-win team. But they couldn't make that kind of trend, win 9 games, and everybody says, okay, turn off the fire alarm, everything's okay with the Tar Heels for the time being. All
right, my riser this year, it was my riser last year, didn't fully come to fruition. Pitt. Love Narduzzi, new head coach. Love the hiring of Jim Chaney. Love the fact that Chad Wojtek finished the season, not in a dominant way, but efficiently. I think he only threw 1 pick in the final 6 games, something like that. They have the best running back in the conference in James Conner. I think he was the ACC Player of the Year last year. Tyler Boyd is, you have those pieces. The offensive line doesn't fully return, but mostly back. If the defense can improve, which I think they will under Narduzzi, they don't have the talent and experience in that system that obviously Michigan State had, but I think they will be a lot more cohesive this season. And Pitt misses both Clemson and Florida State, an ideal schedule. I think they finished 4 of their last 5 games at home, so they're in a position to succeed if they can get through like a pretty dangerous October.
And one of the hallmarks of Michigan State over the last few years has been squeezing a lot of talent out of guys who weren't super highly ranked.
Development, and now he's got a full off season and to work guys into a system. To you, who falls from that cream?
This is tough. I think there are a lot of potential candidates you could go with here. But I'm going to say Louisville, because they lose so much on both sides of the ball, especially the whole secondary is gone. And that secondary was so good at getting game-changing interceptions,
Charlie Strong was a terrific
down.
recruiter, left the cupboard completely full.
Absolutely. They also have a hell of a non-conference schedule. They have to play Auburn, Kentucky, and Houston. And those are all 3 teams that we look at compared to last year and say, those teams should be better.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's a very scary gauntlet to have to run through. I don't think it's necessarily a sign that things are going wrong with the Cardinals, but it is maybe just a step back season for them.
Yeah, I have Clemson in this spot, who I think is going to be very good come the end of the season. I think a little too much turnover on defense talent-wise, although they've recruited very, very well. And Venables has done they were the best defense in the country last season. And offensively, love Deshaun Watson, especially when he's hitting his ceiling. A little worried about how fragile he's appeared at times physically. Love the receiving duo. There's a ton to love about Clemson. But those losses, with how good Jarrett and Anthony were last year, especially, and then Vic Beasley, let alone maybe the best pass rusher in the country, I think it's going to be a lot to overcome, at least early on in the season. So I could see them as 8 or 9 wins, a little bit stupid loss-wise. Maybe they lose a game 38-35. They can definitely score with anybody in the conference. And worried about the turnover.
And now we got to see what they do without Chad Morris.
Without Chad Morris as well.
Yeah.
And they elevated system guys, system coaches already that were in Clemson. But yeah, it is a concern as for rhythm. To you, who is the player that perhaps, maybe isn't necessarily on one of the best teams, but everybody, even outside the ACC, should know?
Miami has certainly not lived up to its billing that they hoped Al Golden would get them to.
They develop players,
They develop players really well. And a player I think they might develop this year is Gus Edwards, who's
that's a great pick.
6'2", 225, and might be like the second or third fastest player on the whole Hurricanes roster.
This is true.
They're going to rotate at running back, so I don't think he's necessarily going to get, a crazy number of carries or anything like that.
Right.
He got a little dinged up in the spring game, but it doesn't sound like that's going to be too serious. I just think he's got all the physical potential there, and if they can get him on the field, keep him on the field, he can do some really, really interesting things.
And especially with that running back duo, even with the loss of a couple of big offensive linemen, if they're able to establish the run early, Brad Kyatt, his job becomes so much easier with obviously lesser receiving talent after the draft this year, but it's going to be quite interesting to see if this is the year, because another coach, make or break. My player this year, and I'm gonna sort of jump on the Pitt bandwagon once again, Tyler Boyd. And he's not under the radar. He's much more under the radar than he should be because
he plays for a team that underachieves.
Right, but he is probably one of the 2, 3, 4 best receivers in the country at this point. And when Pat Narduzzi came in, watched film, went through spring practice, he was very glad that he was on Pitt's team, not anybody he had to scheme against. Because especially if James Conner has the type of season, may have worn down a little bit at the end of last year, but if he has the type of season that's expected, Tyler Boyd's going to have some ideal matchups on the outside, and he is so good. The way he adjusts to the ball, the way he just sort of wills himself open, Tyler Boyd should be on every single preseason list. No matter, he should be on preseason defensive tackle list.
Big 12 preseason list.
Big 12 preseason punter. He should be on the Ray Guy watch list. He's that good.
You can't prove he's not that good.
That is totally true. What game are you looking forward to this season that you have highlighted on your matrix schedule?
I think when Virginia Tech goes to Miami, it's going to be a really interesting game because it's a big transition moment for both programs. It's sandwiched in between Florida State and Clemson for the Hurricanes. It's their first home conference game of the season. It kind of feels like, whether or not they come out of the Florida State game with a win or loss, it's either did you have a letdown spot after you beat Florida State on the road, or did you, recover from that loss and beat Virginia Tech? And for the Hokies, this is the kind of game you look back on and say, this is where things started to go wrong, or this is where they sort of turn the season around after some early losses. And what their defense should look like this season. They should not have problems with stopping many teams. Not necessarily their offense is going to be the question again, but stopping a lot of teams. I think I'm going to go with Florida State, Georgia Tech. It's at Georgia Tech. Florida State will be in a position by, I think it's the week before Halloween, October 24th. Well, they'll know what they'll have. They know who's going to work in that offensive line rotation. They know who's going to work in the defensive line rotation. Jalen Ramsey moving to the outside after playing that sort of star nickel corner last season. They're replacing so much, but I feel like they've recruited well enough. They're deep, recruiting-wise, depth-wise on the defensive line, where they need to be ready for that Georgia Tech attack and Justin Thomas. And that's going to be both. It's going to sort of show us what Georgia Tech has at that point, and then also what Florida State does or does not. And Everett Golson, this is not a great Georgia Tech defense, but it was fine last season. They turned teams over. So really, Everett Golson, he's going to have tests before this, but this is when we will fully understand what he can do in that offense. Yeah, absolutely.
So looking forward to that. All right, this has been our ACC preview. Let us know where you agree, where you disagree in the comments. I feel like this is going to be an entertaining season on the coast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel good about this. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.